Welcome students to our lecture on the Delimitation Commission of India. I am Anish Tore. And why have we chosen this topic? If you look at the common reference books that you refer to when you're studying Indian polity for the UPSC Civil Services exam, this topic is not included in many of those books, surprisingly. Okay, and this delimitation commission really is an important constitutional body, and it really plays a very important role in determining how our democracy is going to function. Okay, so it is surprising that this topic is not covered in many reference books that students and aspirants normally use, and that is why we are addressing this issue and this topic, because it is not generally discussed by others. Secondly, it has a very important contemporary relevance. What is the contemporary relevance of this topic? There are two important points. So after the abrogation of article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir, okay, to restore the process of democracy in that state, or now in that union territory, it was important to reconfigure the local constituencies. That is why a delimitation commission was established, especially to address the issue of democratic deficit in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So, to reconfigure, to redesign the electoral constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir, we had the creation of a specific delimitation commission. Secondly, since we have the 2024 elections approaching us very far, like in the near future, and there is a very important landmark in the year 2026. Okay, in the year 2026 we can expect the commissioning of a new delimitation commission, but this time for all across India. Okay, so after a gap of more than 25 years, okay, it is possible that a national delimitation commission may be set up in the years to come, especially in the year 2026. Okay, now what is so special about this year? We will discuss all of this. Okay, and it is very common that the UPSC does not ask questions which are highly contemporary. Okay, but they expect their aspirants to be much more nuanced or much more advanced in their studies, and therefore an event that is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. Okay, but we know that an event is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. Okay, UPSC tends to ask questions on all such events a year or 2 years before that event has actually taken place. Okay, therefore studying about the delimitation commission, especially considering the fact that 2026 will be the year in which we may have a national delimitation commission, becomes very very important, and this is one area where UPSC could focus on, and I don't want you to lose any marks. Okay, so before I tell you something about the Delimitation Commission of India, I want to test whether you have some prior knowledge about this topic. Okay, so let's see, what do you know about the Delimitation Commission of India? Which of the following statements are true regarding the Delimitation Commission? Statement number one, okay, the Delimitation Commission is appointed every 5 years. Okay, is this a correct statement? Okay, statement number two is, okay, Delimitation Commission of India, okay, is responsible for reorganizing the electoral constituencies of Lok Sabha. Is this a correct statement? Statement number three is that the commission can increase or decrease the total number of seats in Lok Sabha. Okay, so what is the total number of seats in Lok Sabha currently? It is around 545, at least. The elected number of seats are 545, right? So according to statement number 3, whether to increase this total number of Lok Sabha seats from 545 to, let's say, 570, 575, okay, is this a decision taken by the Delimitation Commission, or is this a decision that is taken by the Election Commission of India? Okay, please do consider the fact that we are in the middle of the construction of a new parliament. Okay, a new parliament building. And what was the rationale, what was the explanation given by the government? Why did they want a new parliament building? They were saying that the old parliament building has become old, and it is not able to accommodate the members of parliament. Now, this was a very puzzling kind of a statement, because there is enough space to accommodate the 540 or 550 members of Lok Sabha and the 250 odd members of Rajya Sabha. But when the government is saying that they're falling short on space, what does it indicate? It indicates that we are probably going to see an expansion of the size of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in the coming years, especially like I've mentioned, in the year 2026, we might have another delimitation commission, and it could lead to the expansion of the overall size of parliament itself. So what does the statement number 3 says? Okay, whether to increase or decrease the number of MPs is determined by the Delimitation Commission of India. Is that a correct statement? And what is the statement number 4? Statement number 4 says that the Delimitation Commission is a subunit, or it is a department under the Election Commission of India. Okay. Now, which of these statements are true? I will give you 10 seconds and think over it, and then I will give you the right answer. Okay, students, so the time's up. Okay, so let us tackle these statements one by one. Okay, Delimitation Commission of India is appointed every 5 years. This statement is wrong. Traditionally speaking, okay, there are two articles in the Indian Constitution. Okay, first is Article 82. Second is Article 170. Both of them really talk about, when should Delimitation Commission of India be established. So traditionally, a new delimitation commission should have been established after conducting each new census. Okay, so once you when do we conduct a census? We conduct a census every 10 years. So ideally, as per the original scheme of the constitution, okay, as soon as we are done with conducting a census, okay, we should immediately establish a delimitation commission. So the first statement is wrong. Okay, originally we used to have a delimitation commission every 10 years, right? But in the current scenario, even that pattern is not being followed. Okay, the last time we had a delimitation commission in India was in the year 2001. So you can say that more than 20 years have passed. Okay, why? What is the reason that we are not having regular delimitation commission nowadays? We will go into that we will go into the details of that question in the next part of our lecture. But for now, we need to understand the first statement is wrong. What about the second statement? That the Delimitation Commission of India is responsible for reorganizing the electoral constituencies of the Lok Sabha. What does this mean? Okay, reorganization means that you can. What is the difference between statement number 2 and statement number 3? Statement number 2 suggests that, okay, there are 545 Lok Sabha constituencies in India at present. Reorganization means that you change the size of constituencies, you change the areas of constituencies, but you do not change the overall number of constituencies. So yes, there are 545 Lok Sabha constituencies, but between different elections, what can happen is that the number of constituencies remains the same, but some certain areas are excluded from one constituency, certain areas are included in another constituencies. So the shape, size, and the overall number of voters in each constituency can be changed by the Delimitation Commission of India. So statement number 1 was wrong, but statement number 2 is definitely correct. Okay, the Delimitation Commission has the powers to play around with, to redetermine and reorganize and redesign the constituencies, okay, without changing the overall number of constituencies. So statement number 2 is correct. What about statement number 3? Statement number 3 suggests that the Delimitation Commission of India can increase or decrease the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies. Is this statement correct? Okay, again, statement number 3 is also correct. Okay, we will look at this pattern of how the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies in India has changed since the time of independence. We have a slide. Okay, we have a diagram to show that in the later part of our lecture. But Right now, let me just tell you that when we had our first Lok Sabha election in the year 1952, the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies was 489. 489. As all of you should know, today the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies in the Lok Sabha is 545. So you can see very clearly that the number has increased from 489 to 545. Okay, and who has suggested that we increase the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies? Because the population of India is also increasing. Who has suggested this? It is the Delimitation Commission of India. So statement number 3 is correct, statement number 2 is correct, whereas statement number 1 was wrong. What about the last statement? The Delimitation Commission of India is a subunit, or it is a department under the control of the Election Commission of India. Is this a correct statement? Statement number 4 is wrong. Okay, though Delimitation Commission and Election Commission, their work really overlaps. Okay, they need to coordinate with each other, but the Delimitation Commission of India is in no way subordinate. It is in no way under the control of Election Commission. It is an independent institutional authority. Okay, so to work effectively, both these institutions, the Election Commission and the Delimitation Commission, have to coordinate with each other, have to work with each other, but there is no power hierarchy between them. Okay, there is nothing in the constitution to suggest that the Delimitation Commission of India works under the Election Commission. No, they are institutions that have an equal authority. Okay, and they have their own sphere. Okay, they have their own functions, and they behave, and they act in an autonomous manner. Okay, how do these two institutions interact with each other? Okay, we'll come to that in just a few moments, but right now you need to know that statement number 1 was wrong, statement number 4 was wrong, whereas statement number 2 and statement number 3 are correct. Okay, the Delimitation Commission of India not only has the authority to reorganize or redesign the shape and size of Lok Sabha constituencies or even the Vidhan Sabha constituencies. Yes, so they can reshape and resize the constituencies without playing around with the total number of constituencies. That is also correct. But if the Delimitation Commission of India feels that you need to increase or you need to decrease the total number of constituencies in the legislature, they have the power to do that also, right? So now we'll move to the next slide. Okay, again, before I teach you about the Delimitation Commission of India, I want to again see how much you know about, how much you have studied on your own. Again, which of the following statements are true? Okay, the first statement is, after each census, okay, the government of India has set up a Delimitation Commission. Okay, the important word, the important term that you should pay attention to is that it has set up, which means that from the day we got independence till today, okay, we have conducted multiple censuses. Okay, so we have completed 7 census, and now we are in the middle of the 8th census. So what the first statement seems to suggest is that the Delimitation Commission of India till today has been set up after each census has completed its exercise. So according to the first statements, since 7 census are complete, it means that 7 delimitation commissions have been set up till today. That is what is the claim of the first statement. Okay, before seeing whether it is right or wrong, let us consider the other statements. Statement number 2 says that the report and recommendations of the Delimitation Commission cannot be challenged in any court of India, including the Supreme Court. Okay, now this is a statement, okay, that whatever the Delimitation Commission of India suggests, okay, it has to be implemented, and there is no power of judicial review. That is what statement number 2 seems to be suggesting. Is that correct or is that incorrect? Okay, we'll come to that. Let us consider the last statement first. Okay, the report of the Delimitation Commission of India has to be placed, okay, has to be placed in front of the respective legislatures, whether it is at the central level or the state level, but the legislature cannot amend the suggestions of the Delimitation Commission. Okay, now just look at this. there is historically been a conflict between legislature and judiciary in India. And what is the main point of conflict? Whether it is the legislature which is more powerful or whether it is the judiciary that is more powerful. Okay. Now, statement number 2 and statement number 3 seem to be suggesting that the Delimitation Commission of India, as far as its powers are concerned, as far as the authority of the Delimitation Commission of India is concerned, okay, it is above both. It is above the judiciary also and it is above the legislature also. Why? Because according to statement number 2, okay, Delimitation Commission, its report and recommendation cannot be challenged by any court, including the Supreme Court, which seems to suggest that it is above the judiciary. And even though the report of the commission is placed in the legislature, okay, the legislatures cannot amend the report. Okay, now which of these three statements is correct? Okay, firstly, the first statement is wrong. Okay, like I've said, originally Article 82 of the Constitution and Article 170 of the Constitution suggest that a sense after the government finishes conducting a census, which happens once in 10 years, okay, after you're done with that census, you should ideally set up a delimitation commission. Okay, this is what Article 82 and Article 170 seem to suggest. However, in practice, okay, we have had only 4 delimitation commissions being set up till date. Okay, since we have completed seven censuses and we are undergoing the 8th census, ideally, if statement number 1 was true, then we should have established at least 7 delimitation commissions, but that is not the case. Okay, in reality, we have only established 4 delimitation commissions till date. Which are these delimitation commissions? So you had a delimitation commission in 1952, one in 62 and 63. Okay, one in the year 72 and 1 year in the year 2002. Okay, so the Delimitation Commission of India has been established only 4 times. Okay, so why is that the case? We'll just discuss that in the next part of the lecture. But right now we know this, that we know that statement number 1 is wrong. Statement number 1 is wrong. Okay, what about statement number 2? That the report of the Delimitation Commission of India cannot be challenged in even the Supreme Court, which means that the Supreme Court does not have the power of judicial review when it comes to the Delimitation Commission of India. Okay, do you think that the Constitution has created any institution which is above even the Supreme Court, which is not answerable, which is not accountable to the power of judicial review? Okay, till today, whatever we have studied, we have not come across any such institution. Okay, which is not accountable even to the Supreme Court. Okay, but statement number 2 is correct. Okay, the Delimitation Commission's suggestions, its report, its recommendations cannot be challenged even in the Supreme Court of India. Okay, now just think of the power that this institution has. Okay, and this is again an exception. There is probably no other institution established by the Constitution of India which is completely unaccountable even to the Supreme Court of India. Okay, the exception is the Delimitation Commission. Statement number 2 is correct. Okay, let us say that the Delimitation Commission of India suggests that the size of Lok Sabha should be increased from 545, which is the current size, to 700. Okay, this is the recommendation of the Delimitation Commission of India. Now, this recommendation that increase the size of Lok Sabha to 700 MPs, okay, this cannot be challenged in the Supreme Court of India. This cannot be challenged in the Supreme Court of India, right? So statement number 1 was wrong, but statement number 2 is correct. What about statement number 3? Statement number 3 seems to suggest that the report of the Delimitation Commission of India has to be submitted to the legislature, whether it is the central legislature or the state legislature. Consider an example where the Delimitation Commission of India is suggesting some changes to the constituencies of the state of Maharashtra. Okay, then the Delimitation Commission report has to be submitted even in the Maharashtra legislature or the Maharashtra Vidhan Sabha. Okay, So not only at the Lok Sabha level, also at the state level. So the report has to be submitted to the legislature, but the legislature is in a way it is powerless. It is powerless, but why? Because it cannot amend. It cannot amend the suggestions. It cannot amend the suggestions that have been made by the Delimitation Commission of India. So what about this? Is this statement true? Again, this statement is true. Okay, that the Delimitation Commission of India and its suggestions can neither be can neither be challenged in the judiciary, nor can they be amended in the legislature. So in a way, you can say that the Delimitation Commission of India, as far as its own work and own jurisdiction is concerned, okay, it is above even the judiciary and it is above even the legislature. Okay, this is how important this institution is. Okay, but it is hardly discussed in day to day affairs of politics, and not even scholars of political science have paid adequate attention to this very important institution. Okay, so now that you have some basic understanding about delimitation commission, just let us just look at the formal procedures that are involved in establishing and in creating the delimitation commission. Like I've said, two important articles with respect to the delimitation commission of India that are mentioned in the constitution are article 82 and article 170. Okay, 170 applies to the role of delimitation commission as far as state legislatures are concerned. Okay, state legislatures. Okay, whereas article 82 is about the role of delimitation commission as far as the central legislatures are concerned. Okay, yes. So these are the two uh, if you are asked a question that where in which part of the constitution do you find the mention of delimitation commission, the answer is article 82 and article 170. Okay, now let us see how what is the procedure involved in establishing the delimitation commission of India. Firstly, every time the delimitation commission of India, like you know, it is not a permanent body. It is firstly it is not a permanent body. So the first time the Delimitation Commission of India was established in the year 1951-52. Okay, right? After the first census was over, the Delimitation Commission of India was established. It did its work. It did its work. It gave its report, and it is disbanded. So once the work of the Delimitation Commission of India is over, it is disbanded. So it is not a permanent body. Then after another census is conducted, okay, then every time the Delimitation Commission of India needs to be re-established, before it is re-established, an act of parliament needs to be passed. So before establishing the 1952 Delimitation Commission, okay, Parliament passed a law. Okay, Parliament passed a law which said that this is the composition of the Delimitation Commission of India. These are the members, and this is the work that it has to do. Next time, after 1952, the Delimitation Commission of India was established in the year 1962-63. So again, before the establishment, Parliament again passed a law saying that a new Delimitation Commission of India has to be established. So first, Parliament passes a law to that effect. Point number one. Point number two, after Parliament passes a law, okay, it is for the formal order of the establishment of the Delimitation Commission of India is again issued by the President of India. So two important institutions that are involved in the establishment of the Delimitation Commission of India are Parliament, the first one, needs to pass a law before the establishment of a new commission, and secondly, the formal orders are issued by the President of India. Okay, so who are normally the members of the Delimitation Commission of India? Okay, so firstly, you had retired judges of the Supreme Court of India. Okay, now I expect UPSC to ask a question on something like who are the members of the Delimitation Commission of India, and to confuse you, they might ask the question that okay, the Chief Election Commissioner of India will be one option. Okay, state election commissioners will be one option. And instead of giving the option of retired judges of Supreme Court, they might say that it is the retired Chief Justice of India. Okay, so of course, the Chief Justice of India who is retired is also retired judge of the Supreme Court. But then, if instead of retired judges of Supreme Court, the option mentioned is retired Chief Justice of India, then that option would be wrong. That option would be wrong. Okay, and it is very easy for you to get confused because many of these commissions, whether it is a National Human Rights Commission or whether it is the Chief Election Commission, all of them, okay, so for many of them, the it is a qualification that you should be a retired Chief Justice of India. Okay, and therefore you might get confused in the exam scenario and end up making a silly mistake and end up losing marks. I don't want that to happen with you. So please remember, to be what is the member, what is the qualification criteria to be a member of the Delimitation Commission of India. You don't need to be a retired Chief Justice of India. You just need to be a retired judge of the Supreme Court. So even a non-Chief Justice of India can be appointed to the Delimitation Commission. The second member is the Chief Election Commissioner of India, and the third member is the State Election Commission of the respective states. Now, what is the difference between? Firstly, you can say that there are judicial members, right? There are judicial members of the Delimitation Commission, and then there are non-judicial members, right, of the Delimitation Commission. Yes, who is the judicial member? The retired judges of the Supreme Court. And who are the non-judicial members? The Chief Election Commissioner and the State Election Commissioners. So what is the main difference between the judicial members of the Election Commission of, not the Election Commission, sorry, the judicial members of the Delimitation Commission and the non-judicial members of the Delimitation Commission? The main difference is that the judicial member are retired members, okay, whereas the non-judicial members are serving members. तो ये दोनों जो लोग हैं, Chief Election Commissioner of India and the State Election Commissioners, okay, they are not those who have retired. They are those who are serving, who are currently in service, currently employed by the government of India. Okay, so that is the main difference. Please don't make a mistake. Okay, first, don't make the mistake of being confused between Chief Justice, retired Chief Justice, and retired Supreme Courts. Secondly, the judges are retired, but the election commissioners are not retired. They are serving officers. Yes. And these are the three members of the Delimitation Commission of India. Who is the chairperson amongst them? Okay, because this is a three-member committee, and normally any institution established by the constitution or established by parliament also, they tend to have this hierarchy where some are members and there is at least one chairperson. So who amongst these do you think will be appointed as the chairperson of the Delimitation Commission of India? Okay, it is the retired judge of the Supreme Court. Okay, so amongst these three members, okay, it is the retired judge of the Supreme Court who is member of the Delimitation Commission of India, but he or she is also the chairperson of this commission. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so as an example, the most recent example that we have of a Delimitation Commission of India being constituted, okay, it was the Delimitation Commission, which was meant to address issues that are specific to the state, to the union territory of J and K, Jammu and Kashmir, after the abrogation of Article 370, okay, to kickstart the process, democratic process in Jammu and Kashmir. There was a need that was felt by the government that you need to go in for delimitation. Now, what this concept of delimitation is, we'll just cover that in the next part of the lecture. Okay, but the most recent example is that of the Delimitation Commission established for the specific union territory of J and K. Who were the three members? You had Mr. Sunil Arora, who was the Chief Election Commissioner at that point of time, Chief Election Commissioner of India. You had the State Election Commissioner, who is in charge of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, or the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, okay, Mr. K.K. Sharma. And it was Ranjana Desai, who was the retired Supreme Court judge, who was appointed on the Delimitation Commission, okay, and it was Ranjana Desai who was the chairperson of this commission, okay. So this is the most recent example that we have. Now we will come to the different functions of the Delimitation Commission of India. What are the different functions of the Delimitation Commission of India? So function number one is that you have to determine the total number of constituencies that on the basis of the census data. So like I've said, okay, in the very first question that I had asked you at the beginning of this lecture, can the Delimitation Commission of India suggest to increase the total number of constituencies or to decrease the total number of constituencies? We, as we had discussed, yes, this body does have that power, but on what basis can it make these suggestions? Okay, it cannot make these suggestions based on their whims and fancies. Okay, so if the census data shows that the overall population of the country is increasing, only in that scenario can the Delimitation Commission of India, can it suggest that the total size of the parliament needs to increase. So it can determine the number of constituencies but based on census data. Okay, now just to show you what the role of the Delimitation Commission of India has been, okay, with respect to the total size of India's parliament, let me just take you to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned at the very beginning of our lecture, okay, the first Lok Sabha election that we had in the year 1952, okay. So according to the 1951 census, what was the population of India in 1951? It was around it was not 360 crores, sorry, it was 36 crores. It was around 36 crores, okay. And so for this population of 36 crores, the Delimitation Commission of India suggested that the size of parliament should be around 489. It should be around 489. Okay. Later on, as the population of country kept on expanding, okay, concomitantly, the Delimitation Commission of India suggested that the size of parliament itself should grow. Okay, so in the year, let's say in the year 1971, okay, our population had reached somewhere between 75 to 80 crores, somewhere thereabouts. So since the size of the population was increasing, the total number of seats in parliament also kept on increasing. Okay, so in 1971, the Delimitation Commission of India suggested that the total number of Lok Sabha constituencies should be 521. Okay, the last time the Delimitation Commission of India has been established, okay, the last time it has been established at an all India level was the year 2002. Okay, and on the basis of the 2001 census, which said that the population of India has crossed more than 100 crore, okay, on the basis of that census data, the Delimitation Commission of India suggested that the total size of Lok Sabha be 545 Lok Sabha MPs. Okay, so now we will address a very important question. So now you know how the total size of our parliament has changed since we received independence, and it is in a way proportional to the increase of the population of India overall, right? Now, the question that you should be asking is that after 2000, after 2001, the last time Delimitation Commission of India was established, okay, it's been 20 years, right? The population of India has increased, even more than it was in 2001. So if I'm not wrong, in the year 2001, the population was something around 102 crores. Okay. The 2011 census tells us that the population of India in the year 2011 was 121 crores. Okay. And we don't have the exact figures, but once the 2021 census is complete, okay, it is roughly estimated that the population of India would be something between 140 to 145 crores, right? So in the last 20 years itself, the population of India has roughly increased by 40%, whereas whereas the size of India's parliament, especially Lok Sabha, is the same. Okay, it is as per the 2001 data. So why have we not increased the number of seats? Okay, now this was the first time this concern, okay, arose in the 1970s. Okay, that, okay, we need to increase the total number of MPs, total number of the total size of parliament. Okay, if our democracy is to remain meaningful. Okay, however, the larger goal, we need to have a larger goal. And what is that larger goal? The larger goal is to control our population. Okay, because this, unless we control our population, okay, there is a danger that our democracy, okay, it will turn into what? It will turn into mob rule. How will that happen? Very simple. Okay, if any part of India, if any state of India wants to increase its political power in India, what is the simplest policy it can adopt? It can basically incentivize the citizens of that state to produce more children. Because the way Delimitation Commission of India works, okay, it was established after every census. And if the census shows that the population of a certain state has increased, then that state will be granted extra number of members of parliament. So for example, let's just take this example, that before the 2001 census, okay, you had state A and you had one state B. Okay, now the population of state A was 10 crore, the population of state B was also 10 crore. Okay, now since they had same population, okay, the total number of Lok Sabha MPs allotted to the two states were also the same. Okay, so 25 MPs from state A and 25 MPs from state B. Okay, now what happened in the next 10 years? Okay, state A managed to control the population growth. Okay, because we are living in the middle of a demographic disaster. Our population is expanding, but we are not able to create so many opportunities for our people, right? So population control is a very important policy objective. State A managed to control the population to 12 crore. Okay, whereas state B did not control its population. In a way, it also incentivized its people to expand its population. So in the gap of 10 years, population of state A grew by 2 crore, but population of state B, because they did not practice any population control family planning measures, okay, population of state B has doubled to 20 crore in these 10 years. Okay, now what will happen is that since the population of state B is more, then they will be allotted higher number of Lok Sabha MPs by the next delimitation commission. So since the population has doubled, it is possible that the political weightage of state B will also double. Okay, in the previous census they had 25 MPs, now population is double, so they will have 50 MPs. Now this is a contradiction. On the one hand, if you want to practice proper democracy, okay, you should be giving more political weight to those states that have higher population, right? Unless we do that, we won't be a true democracy. But on the other hand, population control is also very important. And therefore, to ensure that those states that are practicing effective population control, that are keeping their population control under check, they should not be disincentivized, they should not be politically disempowered just because other states are increasing their population, therefore they are being gifted more and more Lok Sabha constituencies. That should not happen. That is why, okay, the Delimitation Commission of India, this exercise was suspended twice. Okay, first it was suspended in the year 1976 when we had our first population policy, okay, which said that we should not reward those states that are having higher rate of growth of population, because it is not good for our country. Similarly, after we conducted the 2002 delimitation, okay, we have suspended this exercise of delimitation for the next 25 years. On the first occasion in 1976, we had suspended this provision of delimitation for 25 years so that those states with lower population growth do not suffer politically, and those states with higher population growth are not incentivized by giving them extra political power. So on both these occasions in 1975 and 2002, okay, we have suspended this delimitation commission exercise to ensure political equity between those states that are practicing effective family planning and those states that are having a higher rate of population growth. Okay, that is why delimitation commission, though it was originally to be established after every 10 years, after every census, it has not happened because of this population problem that we have. Okay, now which are these states which are having very high population growth? So for example, all states that are colored in the color blue, they have population growth rate below replacement level. What does below replacement level means? Replacement level means that if on average two adults are giving birth to two children, what does it mean? That after these adults are dead, okay, they are being replaced by two children. That means the population is stable. This is called as replacement level. Replacement level. So these countries in these states in blue, okay, they have limited their population growth to below replacement level. Okay, so they are acting in an ideal manner. They have managed to control their population. Okay, but the states that are shown in orange and the states that are shown in red, okay, their population growth is above replacement level. What is above replacement level? More than two children per adult couple. Okay, some of them are having the, as you can see, some states like Meghalaya, some states like Bihar, okay, they are having a fertility rate of more than 3, in some cases 3.5, okay, which is not good for the country. Okay, now if we follow the traditional logic, okay, since the population of Bihar is expanding or population of some Hindi speaking states is expanding, after every delimitation commission and after every census, the size of their looks their the size of their political weightage will keep on increasing. Today Bihar has 40 MPs. Because its population size has increased, soon it will have 50 MPs. On the other hand, states like Tamil Nadu, okay, which have 39 MPs, since their overall population is stable or it is decreasing, after the next delimitation commission, they might have only 30 MPs. Now, if this is the logic, then aren't we doing injustice? Aren't we doing injustice to those states that are actually implementing the population control policies in the proper manner? Okay. To stop this injustice, okay, we have suspended the delimitation commission for 25 years on two occasions. So between 1976 to 2001, there was no delimitation commission. There was no delimitation commission, and therefore the overall balance, political balance between the states, even those who have controlled their population and those who have failed to control their population, okay, the balance was maintained. Similarly, after the 2002 delimitation, okay, it was said that for the next 25 years we will not have a delimitation commission up to the year 2026, up to the year 2026. Why? Because we do not want to disincentivize those states. We don't want to punish those states that have managed to keep their population in control. So not only these states in peninsular India, the southern states, but also states like Punjab, okay, states like Sikkim, okay, who have managed to control their population growth. Okay, they should not be made to politically suffer just because they are doing the right thing for India. Okay, so whose work is this to ensure this balance between the total number of constituencies and how they are to be distributed in between the different states of India? It is the work of the delimitation commission. Okay, so determining the number of constituencies, okay, based on census data. Realignment of boundaries and existing constituencies. So for example, okay, for example, there is a constituency of the Pune city. Okay, Pune city was a Lok Sabha constituency, okay, where the entire Pune district, okay, was one Lok Sabha constituency. But later on, due to population shifts and change in demographics, now there are two Lok Sabha constituencies in Pune district. One is Pune city, the other is this Lok Sabha constituency called as Baramati. Okay, now you have added this constituency within the state of Maharashtra, but at the same time, the Delimitation Commission of India, it has deleted one constituency in some other part of Maharashtra. Okay, on what basis? On the basis that you know the Pune district has more population, therefore it deserves more constituencies. So the total number of constituencies in the state of Maharashtra, that has not changed, okay, but within Maharashtra the size and the shape and the names of constituency can be changed, can be altered by the Delimitation Commission of India. Okay, so of realignment of existing boundaries within the existing states. Okay, so Maharashtra, it had 40 to 48 members of parliament before Baramati Lok Sabha constituency was created. Even after this new constituency was created of Baramati, it still has 48 Lok Sabha MPs only. Okay, so one other constituency was deleted and a new one was created within the state. Okay, this power also lies with the Delimitation Commission of India. Okay, very important function is that the Delimitation Commission determines the number of reserved constituencies meant for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Okay, meant for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now the main thing to know is that on what basis does the Delimitation Commission take that decision, that how many constituencies are supposed to be reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Okay, so roughly the number of constituencies meant for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes is directly proportional to their proportion in the population of that state. What does that mean? It means very simply, for example, okay, in the state of Maharashtra, right, Dalits constitute something like 12 to 15% of the total population of Maharashtra. Therefore, 12 to 15% of constituencies in the state of Maharashtra will be reserved for scheduled castes. Similarly, in the state of Maharashtra, the population of scheduled tribes of STs is somewhere between 8 to 10%. Okay, therefore, 8 to 10% of Vidhan Sabha seats, 8 to 10% of Lok Sabha seats from Maharashtra will be reserved. Okay, now this is called as this kind of provision is called as proportionate representation. Proportionate representation proportionate representation what does it mean? That the political representation that you get is directly proportional to your share in the state's population. Okay, and that is why some political parties and some leaders and some experts are calling for something called as a caste census. Okay, caste census. Why do these people feel that caste census is important? Caste census is important to understand whether particular caste groups are growing in size or they are shrinking in size. And unless you have a caste census, okay, you cannot make this demand that, see, our population has grown in the past 20 years, therefore more number of seats should be reserved for us to keep in with the principle of proportional representation. So for example, when India got independence, the total proportion of scheduled caste population, okay, was roughly between 12 to 13%. Now, as per the latest data, okay, it is between 15 to 16%. Okay. So if population of scheduled castes has increased in the past 75 years, it has increased by 2 to 3%, then they demand that more number of seats should be reserved in Lok Sabha, more number of seats should be reserved in Vidhan Sabha. Similarly, when India received independence, the population of scheduled tribes was somewhere around 7.5%, right? Now, as per to 2011 census, the population of scheduled tribes is 8.6%. Okay. So, unless you have a caste census, we cannot understand this changing dynamic of India's demography, of India's population. Okay. And therefore, uh, some people demand that the census should have a column which recognizes the caste of people, so that demands can be made, so that you can give proportionate representation, proportionate, justice. Okay. Today, this work is carried out by the Delimitation Commission of India. Now, a very important task is to redesign constituencies to uphold the principle of what? The principle of one vote, one value. One vote, one value. Now, what does this mean? Because I am sure that you have heard of the term one man, one vote. Okay. Our constitution guarantees one man, one vote. Okay. Therefore, we say that our constitution guarantees political equality. Now, this is a concept that is the next step, towards political equality. So, from one man, one vote, we need to devise a system where the value of one vote is equal in different parts of India. Now, isn't this a given? Why does the Delimitation Commission, have to take special steps to ensure this? Okay. So, I'll just give you one statistic. Okay. When we held our first Lok Sabha election, there were 489 constituencies. Okay. And how many voters were present in each constituency? Okay. So, roughly 10 lakh voters, roughly 10 lakh voters were present in each Lok Sabha constituency. So, that was the criteria. That was how different Lok Sabha constituencies were created, keeping in mind that each constituency should have 10 lakh voters, not significantly more than 10 lakh and not significantly less than 10 lakh. Now, why is this necessary? This is necessary because, see, let us assume that one constituency of Lok Sabha has only 1 lakh voters and another constituency has 20 lakh voters. So, the value of one vote in this constituency is much more, right? And the value of one vote in a larger constituency is very low. Okay. How much influence one vote can make, how much impact one vote can make, okay, is much higher when the total size of the constituency is small. And whereas the total size of the constituency, if it has lots of voters, then it tends to devalue the value of a single voter. Therefore, roughly, when we started our democratic journey, when we started our political journey, the size of each Lok Sabha constituency in India was roughly 10 lakh. But as you know, certain parts of India, okay, as are seen in this map, certain parts of India are growing much more rapidly in terms of population. Other parts are slowing down. Secondly, we have free borders. Okay, so person born in one part of India can resettle in another state, in another city, right? So all of these things causes an imbalance in the population, the total population of different constituencies. Today, I will give you an example. There is a huge gap between some constituencies which are overloaded with voters, and there are some Lok Sabha constituencies which have a very small number of voters. Now, just look at this example. Okay, this is the constituency of Malkajgiri. Okay, now Malkajgiri, this constituency, okay, is in the it is in the state of Telangana. Okay, it is somewhere here. I hope you can see that. Malkajgiri. Okay. Now Malkajgiri has the high, it is one of the constituencies with the highest number of voters. It is the constituency with the highest number of voters. How many voters for this single Lok Sabha constituency? More than 31 lakh. If you just remember, I had told you in 1952, Delimitation Commission of India had tried its best to ensure that each constituency has only 10 lakh voters. Okay, but Malkajgiri today has almost more than three times more than the size of the original idea. So more than 30 lakh voters. Okay. So in Malkajgiri, the value of one vote is not very high. Okay. Because, yeah, a small group of voters cannot, influence the election. You need large groups, and to mobilize large groups, you need lots of money, you need big political parties. So this is also a question of democracy. If you have very big constituencies, then smaller parties, genuine individuals, genuine people who are, ready to work for betterment of democracy, they do not stand a chance because the scale of elections becomes too much beyond their control. If you have to appeal to 30 lakh voters, it is impossible for a small party, for a new party, for a group of idealist people who want to change our political system. It is impossible for them to win because the size of the constituency is just huge and unmanageable. Only big parties with a lot of money, only they can contest and win, right? So this is the scenario in Malkajgiri. What about, this is one corner of the country. Now let us look at another corner of the country. Okay, you have Ladakh constituency, right? Ladakh constituency. Okay, one of the three Lok Sabha constituencies in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, now Ladakh is a separate union territory. Jammu and Kashmir is a separate union territory. Yes. So Ladakh has one Lok Sabha MP. It has the unique distinction. What is the unique distinction? In terms of area, Ladakh is one of the largest constituencies. So biggest constituency of India, one of them is Ladakh. Another one is Bhuj. Okay. In terms of area, these are huge. However, in terms of the total number of electors, total number of voters, it is one of the smallest constituency. How many people, how many voters in Ladakh? Only 1.5 lakh voters. Okay. Now you tell me, isn't this injustice with the voters in the constituency of Malkajgiri? Because here, okay, in Ladakh constituency, 1 to 2,000 votes of people can be easily sway, can easily influence the final outcome of the election. So the value of 1 to 2,000 votes is very very high in Ladakh. However, the value of 1 to 2,000 votes, okay, in Malkajgiri, which has more than 30 lakhs votes, it is next to nothing. Okay, this creates a kind of political inequality. It creates a political inequality between different constituencies, between different states and different parts of India. To ensure that this political inequality is minimized, this is the task, this is the function of Delimitation Commission, that they need to redesign constituencies to uphold the principle of what? The principle of one vote, one value. Okay, to minimize this gap between Malkajgiri and Ladakh or other constituencies in India. Okay. Now, how does the Delimitation Commission take its decisions? Okay, they are either taken by consensus method. What is consensus? Where all of the members, they agree on one proposal, or they are taken by majority method. Okay, since there are only three members, the majority will be 2:1. Okay, so if one person opposes a certain decision or a certain suggestion, then at least two of them should be in favor of that decision, two of the members of the Delimitation Commission, so that that proposal, that suggestion can be pushed ahead. Okay. Next, now you know how the Delimitation Commission of India, it determines the total number of seats that is to be reserved in a state for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. We have already discussed that a few minutes ago. Now the question is, which seats to reserve? Okay. Now, for example, in the state of Maharashtra, there are 48 Lok Sabha constituencies, right? There are 48 Lok Sabha constituencies. Now, which constituency is to be reserved for scheduled tribe? Which constituency is to be reserved for scheduled caste? Okay. What is the criteria that is applied to decide this reservation? Okay, is it random? Is it like a lottery method that the election commission randomly picks any constituency? Is that the case, or is there some method, is there some logic in this selection? Okay, so seats that have a higher concentration, a higher proportion of the population is either Dalit or it is either tribal. Those seats are designated as reserved category seats. Okay, why is this the case? So basically, the average scheduled caste population in the state of Maharashtra is something between 12 to 15%, right? This is the average, right? Average scheduled caste population. However, there are certain seats, okay, where proportion of scheduled caste voters is much more than 12 to 15%. Okay. So, for example, there is a seat of Akola, there is a seat of Solapur. Okay, these Lok Sabha constituencies have more than 25 to 30% voters in these constituencies are what? They are belonging to scheduled caste. Therefore, in those areas, in those constituencies where the proportion of scheduled caste or scheduled tribes is higher, those constituencies are selected to fall under reserved category. That is point number 1. What is point number 2? Okay, you have to ensure rotation of these constituencies. Single constituency cannot remain reserved forever. Okay, so if on one occasion it was Akola which was reserved, next time Akola will not be reserved, the next delimitation commission will say Solapur is to be reserved. Okay, after Solapur, okay, the next time they might say that, let's say, Nasik is to be reserved. Okay, all of these seats may have a higher proportion of scheduled caste. Okay, but you need to rotate this reservation policy so that political leadership emerges in different parts. Political leadership of scheduled castes, it emerges in different parts of the country and different parts of the state. Okay, that is a very important criteria. Yes, so we have covered this point. And lastly, okay, one of the functions of the delimitation commission is to ensure that gerrymandering does not take place. Now, this is probably the first time you have heard of this term, gerrymandering. Now, what is gerrymandering? What is gerrymandering? Okay, we'll just look at that with the help of an example. So we were trying to understand this concept called a gerrymandering. Now, what is gerrymandering? Okay, gerrymandering is the purposeful or deliberate attempt at realignment of constituencies to benefit or to favor a certain political actor or a certain political party. So when constituencies are realigned in such a manner so that they end up benefiting someone at the cost of someone else, that is considered to be an example of gerrymandering. This is a term that is normally used in the context of American elections, where normally the losing side in the American elections, they accuse the winning side of gerrymandering. मतलब आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज को ऐसे रीशेप किया या ऐसे रीडिजाइन किया that you ended up having more voters that were pro the winning party, and you cut out the voters that were not in favor of voting for the party that eventually won. Okay, so with the help of an example, we'll consider this. Now, let us consider this to be the old arrangement. Okay, so the old arrangement, so the before delimitation has happened. What is delimitation? Changing the size, changing the number of the total number of constituencies, right? Before delimitation has happened, in the earlier arrangement was that you have these three constituencies: constituency A, constituency B, and constituency C. Okay, now if you look at this, these are mixed constituencies, right? So each of the dots, each of the colorful dots that you can see, okay, they represent voters that belong to a particular community, a particular caste, a particular religion, okay. And unfortunately in India, as you know, that most of our political choices are based on, most of the Indian voters vote on the basis of their caste affiliation or their community affiliation or their religious affiliation, okay. So this becomes an important factor. So all the red dots are those voters that belong to a particular caste, okay. All the green dots are belonging to a group of voters that belong to a particular religion, etc., etc. Now the old arrangement was that all of these constituencies A, B, and C, okay, they had voters from different castes and different communities. Therefore there was, this provided a fair, democratic, and equal chance for different political parties, for different candidates to stand and probably win the election, because the constituencies were not lopsided. There was not an over representation, there was not an over representation of certain communities, and there was not an under representation of other communities. So let's say in constituency A, you can see that there are at least 3 to 4 different types of people living there, right? So yellow community or red community or green community or purple community, okay. So if you have a candidate from yellow community, okay, then he has a chance, because there are yellow voters but there are also non-yellow voters, okay. And the same happens with, other constituencies, right? Now this was the old arrangement. Now, if delimitation is done for political purposes, to specifically help one political party win and to defeat other political parties, how will this realignment happen? Okay, so see, actually, the images on the left side of your screen and the right side of your screen are the same. The arrangement is the same, but the shapes have been changed. And what do the shapes represent? The shape represent, okay, particular constituencies. See, earlier constituency A was a mixed constituency. Now look at constituency A, okay. It has been carved out in such a manner that number of red voters are more than any other group. So if you are a non-red, if you are a non-red political candidate, if you are a blue political candidate, if you are a green political candidate, then your possibility of standing for elections and winning the elections is absolutely negligible. It is very low, because none of the voters that belong to your background, they are not part of constituency A, okay. They have been cut out from constituency A, because the constituencies have been gerrymandered, which means that they have been redesigned in such a fashion that only candidates belonging to red community, only candidates, the political parties that belong to the red community, only they will win in constituency A and nobody else, because other communities have been left out. Similarly, look at the composition of constituency B. Earlier constituency B was also a mixed constituency with different types of voters coming from different types of castes and community backgrounds. Now, since gerrymandering has happened, what has happened is that constituency B has become dominated by what? They have become dominated by blue voters. So only blue voters, only candidates belonging to blue community, only political parties which are pro-blue, they might be anti-red. A political party might be anti-red, anti-yellow, anti-green, but if they're pro-blue, they have a good chance of winning from constituency B. This process, because of which there is direct political manipulation of constituencies to benefit someone and to hurt someone, okay. This process is called as gerrymandering. One of the important observations, one of the important functions of the Delimitation Commission of India is to ensure that this kind of political realignment, political reorganization of constituencies should not happen. Okay, if something like this happens, this kind of reorganization happens, then Delimitation Commission of India has failed at its job. Okay, before we move on to the next part, okay, uh, there's one very interesting observation that the Ranganath Mishra, Ranganath Mishra Commission. This was one of the minority commissions that were established 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. They had made this very important observation that in India there is very little representation for Muslims. Very little, very few political parties give Muslim candidates tickets to fight election, even in those areas where Muslims are quite highly populated. So there are constituencies in India where Muslims are 30%, 40%, sometimes 50% of the voters in that area, and it is natural for you to expect that where Muslims are more in numbers in terms of voters, the candidates will also be Muslims. But Ranganath Mishra Commission has made this observation that in those constituencies where Muslims are present in higher concentration, political parties do not give tickets to Muslims, or they cannot give tickets to Muslims, because the same constituencies, okay, where Muslims are are highly concentrated, most of those constituencies are falling under scheduled caste reservation. Scheduled caste reservation, yes. So since those political constituencies are reserved for scheduled castes, okay, parties cannot give tickets to Muslim candidates, even though Muslim candidates can probably win more votes because there are more number of Muslims living in that area. So maybe Ranganath Mishra Commission was really hinting towards the fact that maybe there is a sort of gerrymandering, there is a sort of discrimination, that Muslim dominated constituencies are more often than not designated as constituencies reserved for scheduled caste. In non-Muslim dominated constituencies, okay, scheduled caste reservation does not happen. This could be an example of gerrymandering, okay. This was for the first time pointed out by the Ranganath Mishra Commission, okay. So preventing this sort of political manipulation is one of the core functions of the Delimitation Commission of India. So we will conclude the lecture by looking at the most recent example of delimitation that has taken place in India. Okay, you had the Delimitation Commission established particularly for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir in the year 2021. Okay, so this is the Delimitation Commission that I had mentioned before. Okay, so this Delimitation Commission, which comprised of Ranjana Desai and Sunil Arora and KK Sharma, this was established to conduct delimitation of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, what has been the outcome of that delimitation commission? Firstly, they proposed 7 new seats for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, six of those seats are in Jammu region. Six of those seats are in Jammu region, and one extra seat was given in Kashmir region. Okay, this is one of the main recommendations of the Delimitation Commission meant for Jammu and Kashmir. Secondly, see, since you had Article 370, many progressive features of the Indian Constitution, they were not being implemented in the Jammu and Kashmir, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. For example, there is a high proportion of scheduled tribe population in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, but since you had Article 370 in place, political reservation of constituencies for scheduled tribes did not happen since 1947 onwards. Okay, so now that 370 has been abolished, okay, this Delimitation Commission proposed that something close to you know 7 to 8 seats in the Jammu Kashmir legislature, they should be reserved for whom? They should be reserved for scheduled tribes. Okay, for the first time, political reservation of scheduled tribes will take place. Okay, thanks to Delimitation Commission of India. Okay, that worked for Jammu and Kashmir. Lastly, okay, Jammu and Kashmir is a very interesting place because of this political dispute between India and Pakistan and the politics that goes around it. Okay, many people who were earlier part of Indian Jammu and Kashmir, they had migrated to the Pakistani part of Jammu and Kashmir, and after living them there for few years, they were not happy with what was going on in Pakistan. Then they have returned back to Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so these are called as Kashmiri immigrants or Kashmiri migrants. Similarly, some Hindus or some non-Muslims who are living in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, okay, the territory of Kashmir under the control of Pakistan. Okay, these were refugees and they crossed the border from Pakistan held Kashmir to the Indian part of Jammu and Kashmir. These are known as Kashmiri immigrants. Okay, now they are basically caught in between a rock and a hard place, because they are neither considered to be full citizens of India nor are they considered to be citizens of Pakistan. Okay, so these people, and this is a big, there is a big number of these people. Okay, they have no political representation in the Jammu and Kashmir State Assembly. Okay, there are a few lakh people who have crossed the border from India to Pakistan and back to India, or these refugees coming from Pakistan occupied Kashmir to India. Okay, they are in lakhs, but since they are not considered to be full citizens, they lacked political representation. So one of the recommendations of the Delimitation Commission meant for Jammu and Kashmir was that at least there must be two people from the Kashmiri migrant community. They should be sent to the J&K Assembly. Okay. These are some of the major recommendations of the Delimitation Commission meant for Jammu and Kashmir. Increase the number of total seats in Jammu and Kashmir from 83 to 90. Provide for political reservation for whom? For scheduled tribes. And thirdly, you should have political representation for Kashmiri migrants. Okay, those people who have migrated from Pakistani part of Kashmir to the Indian part of Kashmir. Now, let us consider the one of the most important implications of Delimitation Commission. Of these 7 new seats that were proposed by the Delimitation Commission, 6 went to Jammu and only one went to Kashmir, the Kashmir region. Now, this is very interesting because if you look at what this was the composition of Jammu and Kashmir before delimitation has happened. Jammu is an area with lower population, therefore it has lower number of seats. Kashmir Valley is a area with higher population, therefore it had higher number of seats in the Jammu and Kashmir assembly. Now the population balance between Jammu and Kashmir is the same. Kashmir is more densely populated, Jammu is relatively less populated. Okay, but the newer seats have gone to Jammu instead of going to Kashmir. Okay, now one of the reasons, what is the rationale, what is the justification provided by the Delimitation Commission of India why it has given more seats to Jammu than giving more seats to Kashmir? They said that we want to maintain a geographical balance, maintain a geographical balance between the Jammu region of the state and the Kashmir region of the state. So even though Jammu has a lower population, it has been given more number of seats because in a way it was seen as geographically disadvantaged, okay, vis-a-vis Kashmir. Okay, now this this new suggestion given by the Delimitation Commission, it violates what? It violates the policy of one vote and one value. Why does it violate this principle? Because there are more number of people and electors and voters in Kashmir. Okay, therefore they should be given more seats. Okay, whereas more seats are being given to Jammu region. So this principle of one vote and one value is being violated by this new suggestion given by the Delimitation Commission of India. It is also not a coincidence that Jammu region of the state of that union territory is having more proportion of Hindus, whereas the Kashmir region has more proportion of Muslims. So as a case study you can study this, whether this exercise of the Delimitation Commission of India is an example of what? Is it an example of gerrymandering? Is it an example of gerrymandering? Study this issue at some depth. Okay, for the first time, the region with more voters has been given less seats, the region with less voters has been given more seats. What could be the possible rationale behind this sort of political arrangement? Okay, so after we have discussed this recent example, we come to an end to our lecture today. Okay, and study well, study smart, and all the best for your exam. Thank you.